For the last part of this set of tutorials, we're going to look at adding text to an image. Now, at the moment, this image is huge. It's nearly 1 meter wide and over 1/2 meter high. Now, I need to make that smaller. So I'm going to use my crop tool, since as we all know that we've got the ability to do this with the crop tool, and I make it about 25 by 15 centimeters. And since I've got the space to play, I'll put resolution at 300. And I'm just going to draw my crop region, which doesn't quite fill the whole picture. That's close enough. Hit enter and allow it to crop it down to the size that I actually want. Now, adding text to an image with Photoshop is quite simple. All we do is we click the text tool, but there are possibly more formatting options in Photoshop than most other pieces of software. There are certainly more formatting options than you can see in Microsoft Word. To begin with, we'll get the toolbar across the top. This is a very basic layout of what tools are available to us. As a general rule, I always advise you try and use a colour that's already existing in the image. So I'm going to use my dropper to choose that red. So I'm going to allow me to choose that red because I'm on the hue and saturation layer. So let's choose the red that way. There we go. And we can see that the text that's on there has actually got a black outline, so we're going to apply that afterwards. So I can click and just type, but what you really want to get into a good habit of is drawing your text box and then typing. My other car is a speedboat. I want that all to be on one line, so I'm going to make the text a little bit smaller. Once I've finished editing the text, I'm going to click the Move tool, and I'm just going to open up the character palette. Now, if you can't find the character palette, go into your window menu and choose character, and it'll pop straight out, but it should be somewhere down here. And it's going to make the font a little bit smaller. Now, the red doesn't really look as rich as some of the red we can see in this picture, so let's try and pick it up from down here. It's actually going darker there, and it's probably because it's offset against the dark background as opposed to being offset on the white. So let's not worry too much about that. It's not a concern we need to worry about right now. So I'm actually going to maybe add a gradient. Now, the font of choice must have been the font from a previous project I've worked on. So again, sorry, I'm going a bit quick. In the character palette, I'll open the font setting up, and I can go through and look at all the fonts that are available to me. Now, the more fonts you have installed on your computer, the more choices you're going to get. At the moment, I haven't really got that many on here, but I'm going to go for something like Copperplate Gothic Bold. That looks nice, doesn't it? Nice and simple. And I'm going to manually make the red richer to try and blend it with the red we can see on the white. We're talking here colour context, which we've studied. It's absolutely fine. You're welcome to delve into that as deep as you want. Now, we've got this big box around it, which we don't really want, so with the Move tool selected, I'm just going to untick Show Transform Controls and take you through some of these options. Now, importantly, we've got a vertical height of the text. So if we increase that, the text itself, let's just move it down, the text itself is going to get a little bit bigger. We can make it as tall as we want, or we can make it as short as we want. I'm going to stick to 100% just for now. We've got a horizontal width of the text, which if we increase it, it will actually make the individual characters of the text wider. But again, not too concerned about doing that. We've got what we'd call the tracking here, which is actually the space between each letter, so I can increase that and I can spread the letters out. That does become quite a useful tool when you're dealing with alignment in Photoshop. But for now, I'm going to take it back down to 0, back down to standard. We can also, obviously, we can go minus and we can take it closer together if that's the style of effect you're looking for. We've also got line space, and if you've got multiple lines, and we've got the baseline shift, which allows us to make superscript. So if you put in the date on display and you want the TH or ND above the numbers, then you want to play with the superscript settings. But we can do all that in the standard settings as well, so we can make it bold, like you'd expect to see in Microsoft Word, or we can make it italic and slant all the text. Or, I mean, this is selected, we can do it in all capitals or in lower capitals. We can do it in small caps if we wanted to. As you can see, we've got quite a bit of control. Underline it, we can strike through. I've never found a use for strike through, I'm sure it's there for somebody. But those are our basic text settings. Attached to the character palette, we've also got the paragraph palette, which allows us to centre and align our text. Try to never use the center. It also allows us to indent it, so we can choose to indent it 50 pixels from the left hand side, and that indentation is purely working on the bounding box. So I've turned transform controls back on just to show you briefly. It's indenting from the edges. Again, we can change this into physical measurements and it will automatically translate it into points if that's the way you want to work. It's purely up to you. But for now, I've got the text. It's kind of the colour I want. I'm going to go back to that original red. It's quite a washed out red. And I'm going to note that on the hydro lift we've got a black outline. I'm going to get rid of the transform control inbox and I'm going to give it a black outline. Now this is quite simple. I need to take it above hue and saturation. That's having quite an effect. I do apologise. If I go into the effects controls and just go into blending options just at the bottom of the palette, it's going to allow me to apply effects purely to this layer. And to start with, I'm going to add a stroke. That stroke is going to be black. I can make that stroke as big as I want, and as you can see, the stroke is going around the outside of the letters. I don't want it too big, I don't want it to stand out too much. About 5 pixels should do it. Now at this point I can click in this box and just input the number, be a lot quicker. I can choose a position of where the stroke is going, I can change blending modes, I can change colour, I could have a gradient stroke, which in a later tutorial I'll show you how to do the Tron style text using gradient strokes, but for now I'm just going to do it a black standard colour. What I'm going to do just to pull it out from the background is I'm going to apply a drop shadow, and then I'm going to make that shadow white because the background is dark enough as it is. I'm just going to tweak the distance, and I'm going to change multiply to normal so we can actually see what's going on. Put the opacity all the way up and you can see that the white is just giving it just a little bit of distance. I don't want it too far. I want it to try and make it look like it's slightly splashing out of the water. If I increase the spread, it will actually increase the boldness of the drop shadow. So I'm just going to increase the size, which is going to wash it out slightly. And my aim is to try and make it look like that's floating slightly on top of the water. Now to make it really float, we'd need to use that perspective trick, so we can try and do that very quickly if we want. To be able to use perspective, I'm going to have to rasterize it, so we'll maybe save that for another tutorial. Right now we've made text. If I put it down at the bottom, it should blend in quite nicely with the boat and with all the white. In fact, if I was to show transform controls, I can rotate it to the angle of the side of the boat, in which case the white will blend in a lot better with all the froth that's coming off the boat, and it'll be a lot more subtle. And that is how we apply text to an image. Quite simple, quite effective. There's a lot of other tricks we can play with in those blending options, but sometimes simply is more effective. Less is more.